For over a decade, Batman fans have been waiting for another Arkham game. Instead, we got a LEGO game, and somehow this is the closest thing we got to an Arkham sequel. I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but after spending hours gliding across Gotham, beating up criminals, solving puzzles, and collecting way too many studs, I think there's actually a pretty strong case for it. Let's get straight into it.
Threw me off a roof.
We're calibrating our gliders, Jim.
I'm gonna calibrate those ears off if we ever get back to solid ground.
One of the first things I notice about this game is how fast it gets moving.
Let's avoid these crowds and cut down Crime Alley.
Is that a good idea, Thomas? I think it's called Crime Alley for a reason.
You get a brief section of gameplay in the Wayne Mansion's garden, Bruce's parents get murdered, 10 years pass, Falcone, combat tutorial.
Look out, loser!
Liam Neeson, Ra's al Ghul, League of Shadows, boom, we're already halfway through Batman Begins. And honestly, I kinda loved it.
I can offer you a path. The path of the League of Shadows.
Sounds like a metal band.
It's a league. If you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, then you become something else entirely.
And that is...
A legend, Mr. Wayne.
The League of Shadows section is basically one giant tutorial disguised in an actual story mission. It's funny, it's entertaining, and most importantly, it doesn't overstay its welcome. The game understands exactly why people bought it. Nobody showed up thinking, oh, you know what I really need today? 4 hours of Bruce Wayne finding himself. No, we want Batman. And the developers know it, and before long, you're already back in Gotham punching criminals in the face, as it should be.
Just as well we live outside of town, eh? Thanks for helping with the luggage, Bruce.
My pleasure, Alfred.
Visually, this game is kind of absurd. There were multiple moments where I completely stopped paying attention to the missions because I was staring at Lego bricks. That sounds stupid, I know, but seriously, the graphics are fantastic, the lighting is fantastic, the rain looks great, the reflections are cool, the shadows are great too. Everything comes together way better than expected. The LEGO aesthetic is especially impressive. The plastic texture on the minifigures somehow look realistic. And the environmental design deserves a lot of credit too. For example, the Iceberg Lounge immediately stood out to me. The architecture, the interior design, the atmosphere, it's packed with personality. And actually, that goes for most of Gotham. Every major location feels handcrafted. Every location feels memorable, feels like it was built with a lot of care. And speaking of important things, while Batman and Catwoman are taking a break in the bathtub, it seems like a great moment to ask you to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's reach 1000 subscribers. Now back to Gotham, because Gotham itself might be one of my favorite things in the entire game. One of the biggest disappointments with Arkham Knight was always Gotham. Now, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful, technically, but it's also empty. The evacuation explanation always made the city feel like a giant ghost town. Arkham City nailed the atmosphere much better. The architecture was exaggerated, theatrical, larger than life. It felt like Gotham. This LEGO game's Gotham is much closer to Arkham City's version. I still wish they pushed even further though. Give me bigger statues, more impossible architecture, more comic book nonsense. Like, I grew up on the Tim Burton Batman movies. So that's Gotham to me. Dark, gothic, stylized, not realistic. Burton's Gotham looks like somebody merged a nightmare and a playground and turned into a city. The combat is also a lot of fun. The takedowns are creative, stylish, satisfying. They perfectly capture Batman's exaggerated nature and LEGO playfulness. The chapter transitions deserve some credit too. They're surprisingly effective to see how the time passes between the chapters. Major events happen off screen, and these little montage sequences do a great job filling in the gaps.
Wait till they get a load of me.
Before you know it, you got a fully operational Batcave, the Batmobile, the gadgets, the whole Batman operation working. Oh, and let me tell you something. What's fun is that I almost didn't buy this game. As much as I love Batman and as much as I love Lego, I've never been the biggest fan of Lego games, besides the original Lego Star Wars games. They are fantastic, I love them. But the Skywalker saga was kinda terrible in my opinion. A lot of time it felt like was just walk here, talk, walk there, talk, mission over, and repeat. But thankfully this game's totally different and completely won me over. Now, with all the praise out of the way, let's talk about the game's biggest weakness, the story. And unfortunately, I do think it's a pretty significant weakness. Instead of telling one continuous narrative, the game is structured more like a collection of Batman greatest hits. Each chapter pulls inspiration from different movies, comics, and games, usually introducing a new sidekick, a new major villain, and a new section of Batman stories to play through. One chapter might feel like Batman Begins, the next leans heavily into Batman Returns, then suddenly you are doing Dark Knight stuff, Arkham Asylum, Batman the Animated Series. On paper that's a fantastic idea, but in practice, it often feels like a series of disconnected episodes rather than one cohesive story, because there's no strong central plot pushing everything forward like in the Arkham games. Character development is fairly minimal, and the narrative sometimes feels more interested in celebrating Batman history than telling its own story. Now, to be fair, that might actually be the point of the game. It's more like a playable celebration of Batman's entire history. So if that's what the developers were aiming for, they succeeded. It just didn't quite work for me. I tend to prefer stories with a stronger narrative holding everything together. That doesn't mean the missions themselves aren't good though, because honestly, a lot of them are fantastic. The Iceberg Lounge mission is a great example. Batman and Gordon are searching for Falcone, which eventually leads you into Falcone's underground funhouse, because apparently Gotham's most dangerous crime boss decided he needed a children's playground. Very nice, very evil. The mission itself is a great introduction to the game's formula. Combat encounters, exploration, light puzzle solving, then eventually a boss fight. And that's pretty much how most of the chapters work. You get a handful of missions, built around specific villain, puzzles, a unique sidekick, and then a major boss encounter to finish things off. One of my favorite examples comes shortly after when Catwoman joins the story. I've always loved playing Catwoman in the Arkham games. She's fast, agile, fluid, everything Batman isn't, but obviously there's only so much fluidity you can squeeze out of a Lego minifigure. But the developers did the best they could. Catwoman's still incredibly fun to control, and the missions built around her are some of the strongest in the game. The Penguin part in particular stands out. After tracking him, you end up working alongside Catwoman through a series of puzzle-heavy sections before eventually reaching the boss fight. Nothing especially difficult, but creative, entertaining, and different enough from the previous missions to stay interesting. Speaking of Penguin, I absolutely loved him in this game. Having him wanting to run for mayor is a fantastic Batman Returns callback, and honestly, this might be my favorite version of Penguin. The boss fights in the game are another major highlight. They are not difficult at all, but they are creative. Every boss introduces some unique mechanics or some unique gimmicks, scenarios, which is good to create some variety. The last mission I wanted to talk about is the first robbing mission in the circus. That it was actually one of my favorite levels in the entire game. The environment is completely ridiculous in the best possible way. Everything is oversized, colorful, chaotic, exactly what you want from a Batman circus level. The mission is packed with platforming sections, combat encounters, environmental interactions, and enough visual variety to constantly keep things interesting. It's one of the levels where I was never checking the clock or wondering how much was left. I was just having fun.
This could be a little tricky.
How'd you like to see a barrel roll? Think again. Why can't you just give up?
I got this. I hope.
Aren't there any of you fools left out there to stop these meddling heroes?
I really enjoyed how the game combines elements from The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises, and Arkham Asylum into one storyline in the end of the game. Some of those mashups are genuinely clever. That said, the gliding mechanics are kinda hard to pull off in the beginning. And while I understand this is a LEGO game, and silliness is part of the package, sometimes the humor goes a little too far for me, mostly in some scenes with the Joker or like the dance battle. I also have a bit of grudge against Talia, because she spends a large portion of the game helping Batman, then suddenly switch sides. Like, I know it's kinda what happens in comics and other media from Batman, but the transition was just like out of nowhere, rushed. So it's one of several moments where the story feels like it's trying to move on before it's earned it. And you can see this rushness in the game. It took me like 12 hours to finish. But I don't know if this is bad or good, because by chapter 4 it was already starting to feel a little bit of repetition. So if the campaign had been much longer, I think those issues would have become much more noticeable. The final mission is fairly lengthy though, and it served as a decent conclusion, but I'm not gonna spoil anything. Difficulty is another area where the game struggles. I started on normal, which is where I play almost everything, but eventually I increased the difficulty, and honestly I barely noticed. In fact, I completely forgot to upgrade my skills for a huge chunk of the campaign, and somehow that made almost no difference whatsoever. So that's probably not a great sign. The soundtrack is another interesting one. Overall, it's very good, but it's inconsistent. The opening Iceberg Lounge mission leaves a fantastic first impression. The giant music box, the atmosphere, the soundtracks feel energetic and front-centered. Unfortunately, after the mission, the music fades into the background more than I would have liked. The compositions themselves are good, I just kept wishing they were louder, which might sound like a weird criticism, but if I have to actively notice the soundtrack disappearing, I'm probably noticing it for the wrong reasons. Overall, I really enjoy LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. The visuals are gorgeous, Gotham is fantastic, the missions are creative, the boss fights are fun, and perhaps most importantly, you can tell the developers genuinely loved Batman. Because this is a love letter to the Bat, but at the same time the story lacks cohesion. Arkham Asylum is underused, several villains don't get enough screen time, and certain chapters start to feel a little bit repetitive. For me, those issues keep it from reaching its full potential, but I also think it's important to remember what this game is. At the end of the day, it's a LEGO game. More importantly, it's a LEGO game made primarily for kids. So while I would like a deeper story, more challenge, and a little more complexity in some areas, I understand why those things aren't really the focus. This isn't trying to be an Arkham game, and judged by that standard, it succeeds. More than that, honestly, because after more than a decade without a proper Arkham-style Batman experience, this is still the closest thing we got into an Arkham sequel. Maybe not in name, maybe not officially, but in spirit, absolutely. And you know what? I'm pretty happy with that. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the game, or you wish a new Batman Arkham game. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Dionysium gone. Then the city of Gotham will feel the weight of your absolute failure. I will honor our former master, Raz Al Ghul, by finishing his work. For I am the League of Shadows Resurgent. I wondered which would break first, your spirit or your body. Definitely your body. Let the games begin.